I'd like to call the Redevelopment Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ralph, would you start us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sonia, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lack?
Here.
Commissioner Zilli?
Here.
Commissioner Ekdahl?
Here.
Commissioner Munt?
Here.
Mayor Lynch?
Here. We have the approval of the minutes from March 23rd.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We have the payment of claims.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims. Is there any discussion, questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We have staff reports. Sandy, do you have a report? Sure.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sandy.
Over the past month, we've had just a little bit of work going on. Our Market Greenway Trail finally received its final surface coat of asphalt, and our contractor Geary Up is working on restoration, cleaning up all the disturbed areas. If you all weren't aware, a ribbon cutting ceremony has been scheduled for Wednesday, June 7th at 10 a.m. on the site. Of course, we look forward to seeing you all there. For our Central Avenue Phase 1 project, Central Avenue West Phase 1, if you're driving around the city, I'm sure you've all noticed that NIPSCO is actually on site. They are in the process of relocating their poles and their overhead lines for our contractor to start. They are hoping to be done mid-May. But then NIPSCO Gas will be on site relocating their lines. Hopefully we will be clear of all utilities come mid-July, and hopefully in the meantime, Dunnett Bay, our contractor, can actually get on site and do some work while NIPSCO is on site, so we can get a head start of that project. Our downtown community park baseball complex. I hope that you all have been out there. There's been a vast difference from when they started. All of the fields are in good working order. They are doing some touch-ups today, installing the bases, home plate, and they are going to be complete with everything come tomorrow. From what I understand, opening day is Tuesday, May 2nd. So, we have fresh sod that we don't believe has rooted yet. We're just asking the players to tread lightly, and coaches, of course, to replace any misplaced sod after games. For landscape maintenance, our contractor, Lakeshore Landscaping, has been out doing spring cleanup at the sites, and they've already applied their first application fertilizer at the Founders Square Plaza area. They're anxiously waiting May 1st. They will be out on Monday to start mowing everything. And our library garden, it's currently out for bid. We advertised it a little earlier than our required 17 days, trying to give the contractors a little more time to really look at the bid documents and give us a thorough, complete bid with a more accurate number this time. And we will be opening those bids at our special meeting on May 11th, and hopefully award at the regular meeting in May. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great report. Thanks, Sandy. Okay, old business, we have the approval of a holiday properties request for payment for salt application from February.
I have a couple items if I could,
Okay.
before you get into that.
So do you want to speak, Bill, or does Holiday want to speak?
I don't care where, as long as I can get back on the agenda.
Okay. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Hello? Okay, I'm Toby Ernstberger with Holiday, the Director of Facilities for the state, and I'm here to answer questions on this invoice for the salting we performed.
On the invoice, it calls for 7 tons of salt in 1 month, is that correct?
Yep.
I guess it's a parking lot. That seems really high.
Okay.
We've never seen a bill like this, so that's why we've never seen a bill this high, I don't believe.
So like, if you look at our per salting price here, at, so that was $420 for our most expensive one, which was 1,200 pounds. It was a very snowy day. 1,200 pounds is, we're looking at 24 bags of salt. I don't think 24 bags of salt is extensive for 100,000 square foot of asphalt. And the prices that you guys were paying this year with the vendor is $300 per application. So I guess I'm a little confused as where our price is way off from other vendors.
No, we're not saying the price is way off. We're saying that the amount seems very high for a 1 month of salting.
Right, so we did add, the snow conditions for each of the days and the total amount of salt that we put down. I mean, from what I can see here with the report that you guys have all been given, this is well within the line and reason of a normal application. There's really, everything that we did provide, as far as price breakdown and stuff is really 30% cheaper than what you've been receiving in the past. So I'm just curious where what we can do better here than to expedite a service that we did to help out the city, that year as well. I mean, we weren't slated to do the job. The city was gonna try to do it on their own, couldn't perform the services, didn't have the staff, called us last minute. We came in, did the service, and we're still a year later debating this payment.
The first problem that we ran into was we weren't given the whole correct explanation. We were
Okay.
given just this first page, and it states an invoice for 1 day, 2/28/2022, February bulk salt application, $700 per ton, for a total of $4,900. We did not
Right.
receive the second page showing
Okay.
the application dates and the amounts.
Okay.
So that might explain a lot.
Okay. So now with the breakdown then, what, is there anything further I should do to help explain?
I think the one thing is, if we have a light dusting and it's not really that bad, do you find it necessary to put that much salt down? I mean, that really was quite a bit of salt.
Right, so if you look at each day on here, it's not, some are 800 pounds, 500 pounds. It does vary depending on what the conditions are out there. On the lighter snow condition days, the salt is lighter. On the heavier days, the all-day events, then we do put down salt a little heavier to maintain that.
Greg, how much did you say from a city truck? What's the capacity?
City truck is each about 3.5 tons, one of the large ones. And that's where I think as we got the information, we're looking at it from a perspective of just the quantity of salt in a
Right.
1 month period.
Which I can see that, but the amount of times that we were out there, it did snow quite a bit
I
that
don't-
month.
We're
I
not
think-
debating the amount of times you were out there, we're debating how much salt was used. It's 700 tons, or 7 tons of salt in a month period just seems like it was a lot, so that's why we had questions. We're not debating that you were out there and applying salt. That's not the question here.
So like the most that we put down was the 1,200 pounds of salt at the one application, which does equal up to 24 bags. Which is roughly half of one of those, like in your city trucks that have the large bed spreaders, your like 3/4 tons, maybe about half of one of those. Is what we applied throughout there.
How are you metered?
A visual inspection, so we load up our hoppers, go out, salt, and then look at what we have left at the end.
And you refill by bags?
We refill by bags and by tractor. So we'll fill the hopper all the way up with the tractor, or we use bags depending on what salt we put down for that day.
So you don't have a flow meter or scale on your truck?
Nope.
Okay.
And was that a requirement too,
No. I
for
just
most?
asked.
Okay.
Well, at this point, it's the bill. It is what it is. So I'll make a motion to approve the invoice.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Toby.
Thank you, everybody.
We have new business approval of landscape maintenance at City Hall.
So I'm not sure if we can call this new business, but if you recall, we opened bids for landscape maintenance a couple meetings ago, and this has just come around. These were projects that weren't awarded yet. So I have the landscape maintenance at City Hall. It is, our street department is actually going to be mowing the lot, but our contractor will be coming in, putting mulch down, weeding our planting beds, and planting new plants for the year. And if Mr. Attorney Witten agrees, we would like to award the project to Lakeshore Landscaping for the City Hall project for $5,142.12.
It's my understanding they were the lowest by far, right?
They were the lowest of the ones we requested bids from.
Sandy, what was that total again?
$5,142.12.
Thank you.
So you sent out the RFPs, and this is the lowest of...
Yes, we sent the request to 5 or 6 companies, and we received a handful of quotes, and this is the lowest of the ones that we requested quotes from.
Fair enough.
We'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the landscaping maintenance at City Hall. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. We have the approval of landscape maintenance for downtown community park.
Very similar to the previous line item on the agenda. We opened quotes for landscape maintenance for the recreational area, the baseball complex. And we recommend that the commission award the project to Lakeshore Landscaping for $57,756.35.
And again, this was the lowest of the one that you sent.
Correct.
Requested.
Yes, yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have the approval of the Market Greenway Interlocal Corporation Cooperation Agreement.
I don't know what to tell you. That one, I know, I once received it from NERC. It's an agreement with Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission. And I forwarded it to Attorney Witten. He had some questions about it and was waiting for AJ to reply. Obviously, AJ hasn't been in for the past month. He's due back on Monday. I'm not sure if this is something that you would feel comfortable revisiting maybe at our special meeting on the 11th. I don't know if it's something that's
I mean, is there a
immediately
time
needed.
sensitivity on it?
That I'm not sure of.
I don't recall the time sensitiveness of it. I just had some questions, and there was a little bit of the language I had questions about, and I just felt like I needed to have a conversation with AJ when he got back. So I would ask that it be set over to our special meeting.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
So are we tabling this to the May 11th bid opening meeting or
I mean,
to our next meeting?
it's effective April 10th, Dan. Is there a reason that we need to do it sooner?
I mean,
It's already backdated.
yeah, I just seem to recall some correspondence that said they would like to have the executed agreement by June 1st, I think. I'm going off memory here. I'm thinking if we deal with it at our special meeting, we'll be fine.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to table. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have the approval of landscape maintenance for 6100 Southport Road. Sandy, are you telling us about that one?
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, that's the, so we have a,
So thankfully Sonia comes prepared, unlike myself. Holiday Properties, who is our property manager at 6100 Southport Road, requested quotes to perform landscape maintenance out at the property, and they received two, one from T&J and another from Lakeshore Landscaping. And they are, Holiday Properties that is recommending that the work be awarded to Lakeshore Landscaping.
Dan, with it going through Holiday Properties, is there any other requirement if the contract is from the city and they solicited all the bids, is there any kind of problem with that?
No, I mean, it's low enough where we can, it's not so much bidding, but RFQs and RFPs. I mean, as long as they did it properly, that's fine. They can do it on our behalf as the
I mean,
property
they
manager.
provided T&J. I'll make a motion to approve for Lakeshore at $14,817.
Second?
we have motion and a second. I do have a question. Sandy, last year I went out there several times for meetings because I'm on the NERC board, and the place had thistles and all kinds of things. So, I mean, my thing is, what is our recourse if we go out there, Dan, and it's full of weeds?
Well,
Other than to complain to them, because it was, you know, and even NERC thanked me for sending them out there and getting those weeds cleaned up.
so I would suggest, under those circumstances, if we're overrun with weeds and thistles, I love that word, we would go through our property manager and make a, request under the contract. We're still approving the contract, and frankly, if they don't fulfill the obligations of the contract, somebody's gonna be, sued.
Well, I just want them to understand that they didn't really do them.
I don't believe that Lakeshore Landscaping held the contract last year.
Right.
I'm sorry?
I don't think they did.
Yeah, I don't think that they did, and just having conversations with them, being contracted for properties that are coming through here, they're excited to be in the city of Portage. They're thrilled that they're doing both Burns Parkway and now NERC, and they are trying to make a name for themselves here in the city of Portage, since they haven't been able to do the work or have won any of the bids in the past. So they're excited, and I think that they're willing to go above and beyond.
Good, because we have a lot of guests that go to that
Of course.
building, and,
Mhm.
I just think it looked pretty bad, so
Thanks.
I will be watching it again this year.
Good.
Sorry.
Let me know.
Okay, is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have the approval of RDC funding request for the police department.
Guess that's me.
Hello. So I actually sent over one document and then we added something else. So I think there's two different ones on here, but I'll go through the first one here. So for those of you who've been over to the police department, you probably realize it is a nice big space that we have. Believe it or not, we are actually starting to outgrow it. And some of that comes to do with just the fact that it's, it was initially purposed for something else. It was an education center. And while we did a really good job of repurposing it for what we need, it's got some quirks and there's just some unusable spaces that we're not able to use. So we're at the point now where pretty much every office has somebody in it. Every inch of that is being used. So that runs us into this problem that we've got. So we're in the process of trying to look at, as you've probably seen some of the council meetings, we're trying to talk about getting a police social worker in our building. That along with the fact that we have assigned somebody as a station officer now that's helping out with the calls on station, phone calls, things like that, so that our patrol officers don't have to come in from the road and handle things. So right now, that position is basically just working out of the squad room, just a big open area like this. As you can imagine, sometimes there's things that you need a little bit more privacy for, and so we just really don't have that space. So that kind of brings me around to this. So we have a spot upstairs next to our training room. I'm not sure what it was used for. It almost looks like it was like a registration. Yeah, like a registration desk. It's got two big openings, two half walls, and a door. So what we would like to do is close that in and make an office out of that so that we can get one of these needed personnel in there. So when we started looking into it, what we were originally looking at doing was just putting glass on both sides. And so we talked to Trout Glass, and they wanted $3,200 for one side and $3,800 for the other, which was a total of $7,000. Then we talked to Lazaro, and they wanted $9,575 to do both openings. So then we got the idea of what if we did glass on one side so that you could see, because we didn't want somebody to be in there completely without knowing who's walking up or things like that, but we figured we could probably go with the other side and just drywall that. So we then spoke to BTLA Construction, who said that they could do, if we did the glass on one side and the drywall on the other, that would be $2,425. So if we went with these two different options, it would bring us out to $5,625. So we're seeking approval to get that done so that we can create an office up there. So essentially one side would be a window. That would be the side that faces out to the east. The east overlooks the park over there. And then if anybody came up the stairs, whoever's in that office would be able to see who was coming. And then the other side we'll just wall off. It's already got a door. It's already got desks in there. It's set up for phones, the internet, all that stuff. We just need walls. So.
How large a space are you talking about, Chief?
I don't have the measurements, but it's a little longer than it is wide. Maybe 12 by 10 it might be. Yeah, it's kind of a weird, like I said, it's a long space. It almost looks like it was a registration area. Like you'd almost like you'd see at a hospital where have the little bays and people would sit there. It's kind of what it looks like. Right now it's if you're upstairs in the training room and you need a break, you sit on the table there because there's no other use for it. So it's like a lounge area that we don't need. So.
We can just give approval on everything once he goes through everything, not a line by line.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if there was any more questions on it. Appreciate that.
You should give them the whole razzle dazzle.
That makes sense. I'm just standing here staring at you, and you're
Someone
expecting me to
got
go
a
on. So.
question? Are these licensed contractors in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the next thing that we're looking at is monitors. So we're handling about 35,000 calls for service and a year, and the majority of what we do is documented, especially now. Everything requires a report or at least some kind of an entry, some kind of electronic entry. The amount of reports, communications and stuff that are coming through are crazy. And we're pretty much running with, the majority of our departments running with computer screens about maybe a third the size of those. So we've been purchasing a couple here and there while we can, but we're kind of piecemealing it together. So I've got people using 3 screens set up side by side right now so that they can compare reports and stuff. It's just, it's a little goofy. So I ran numbers on monitors. They're all over the board, as high as about $350 down to about $199, and it's all, everybody's got them. Walmart, Amazon, Best Buy. The ones we purchased before off of our own budget were about $250 out of Amazon. It's kind of hard to do side by side because they all got different, because most of these are set for they want to have all these different things for gaming. Well, we don't need that. So I was having a hard time doing comparisons. So we just would probably like to get the cheapest one that's big enough for us to see. So I don't know if that's the best way to present this, but I'm looking to purchase 10 monitors. Probably the minimum would be about $2,000, like I said, $200 a piece. And then the most expensive one was $250, so $2,500. I don't know if that's an acceptable way to present it, but again, it's kind of hard to do a side-by-side because they're all over the place as far as what they need, but we just need something that our eyes can see.
As someone who works from home and uses a big curved monitor, very, very necessary.
Yeah. And a lot of times what we're doing is, a lot of times we're having to compare reports, or, if we're sending it somewhere, you've got multiple reports up, and so you're clicking, you're having to close it out and click it, or we've got all these little tiny monitors set up next to each other. It's just not the best deal, so.
Hey, I see Andy's here from the school board. Is that something that someone at the school can help the chief out as far as picking out monitors or something along those lines? Because I'm sure you guys have quite a few monitors over there.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. We can look into that, because we're trading those things out all the time. Oh, yeah.
Hey, whatever works. Yeah,
I'll get the answer back.
we'll take whatever we can get.
Even just helping them spec out the right monitor for what they use it for.
Okay, yeah, can do that.
Awesome. Next thing on here is chairs. So when we came into the new building, I believe it was 2016, we brought the majority of our old chairs over. A lot of those were already 10 years old, and they are in bad shape. So we did inherit some chairs that were there when it was a university center. We brought those down from the upstairs rooms that aren't used as much, and they don't have the ability to sustain all of this. So essentially, especially in our squad room, our chairs are literally falling apart, holes in them. The backs are breaking off because they're cardboard bottoms. What we inherited were basically for students. We're sitting in them 24 hours a day. And, our clerical, same idea, they're in there all day. And we did have some quality chairs before, but once you get it to about 10 years on a chair with all this, they're falling apart. So I did meet with a company on here. You can see they had me at about $500 for the chairs, which we'd use in clerical, and about $800 for suitable chairs that we would use in the squad room. It seemed like a lot to me for the abuse that we're putting on them, and no matter what we get, they're probably not going to last years and years and years just because of all the gear. No matter what kind of chair you get, our stuff's going to rub on that chair in places. So I found some. We actually bought one just to try it out. It's $240 on Amazon. It'll get us some years. I'd like to get 20 of those for $4,800. Again, it's much cheaper than the other route. I think it'll last us, a good 4 or 5 years at least. I just can't see overpaying for something that we just know we're going to tear up.
So just curious, on the ones from Pulse, did that include putting them together? Because I imagine you got to assemble the Amazon ones.
We'll assemble them.
Okay.
No problem there. Once you fall off the back of your chair once or twice, I got all kinds of volunteers to assemble chairs. And actually, the one sample we bought it wasn't a big deal at all. It was pretty simple. So, they have good product over there. There's nothing against that. It's just, like I said, the wear and tear with these belts and the vests and the Velcro and all that stuff just rubbing on the chairs all day long. It just, I think you'd have to spend an exorbitant amount of money to get something that's going to withstand that, and then it's probably still going to have wear and tear. So it just seems like, cost-effective wise, this is kind of the smarter way to go for us. So, Oh, I skipped one, sorry. So the next one on here, our key card access system. So when we went into the building, we inherited a key card system. So essentially, you know, everybody's got a card, you get into the restricted areas of the building. This system failed on us, and we started calling around trying to figure out, you know, if there was a fix, what we could do, if we needed a new system. Because the system at our station, I'm gonna blow this word, but proprietary? I don't know why I can't say that word. But essentially, so if we had anybody else do the work, we were gonna have to have a new system. So SAS Security is who had that in there, so the charge to fix our system, $9,560. We also met with Phil & Sons to put in a new system, that was $35,000. We had another company that never showed up for our meeting, and then Preferred Window and Door were at $20,138. So essentially, we're at the point where our new officers coming in can't even get into our building. We had to make keys, you know, old school keys to get into the door, but then when they get to certain points of the building, those aren't keyed access, so they're just stuck. So an FTO has to get them through the rest of the building. Can't get rid of old cards, so the cards still work, we just can't add anybody else, and we couldn't delete anybody. So somebody retires, somebody leaves, they still have access to the building. There's no way around it. So so again, the cost on that, $9,560 to repair the system that we've already got.
Do we know what broke?
It is some kind of a programming issue that is way past any warranty. There was a program, I tried to talk to Justin about this a couple times to understand it. He broke it down for me in my terms, but essentially there's some kind of a programming component that failed, and so they had to replace that, but then all the programming had to, you know, there's a charge for the programming on the side of getting this one going again. I mean, I'm butchering this, but that was essentially.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, this one is basically 10 grand, one's 20 grand to just replace it. Are we gonna face the same problem in 2 years and then pay another 10 grand to
I mean,
it
comes with a warranty. I'd have to look at the time frame on it, but I mean, it's technology, and yeah, I mean, I don't, you know, like I said, the other ones would have had to bring in their whole brand new system, all new cards, completely redo the whole thing, and at that point, it just seems we could be in the same boat once that warranty expires. We could be in the exact same boat. So, and the system worked, you know, before it failed, the system was working fine. So it just didn't seem, again, cost-effective wise to go to something brand new for double the price, which if the warranties are similar, we could be potentially be in the same boat years down the road either way, so.
Well,
I think that's it on this list. So it's about $22,485 worth of stuff, but that's including monitors and all that, so.
I wonder, just to give you some cushion, should we just make it a flat 25? Because taxes, things are always a little bit more expensive, and just approve up to 25,000?
This is coming out of their allocated line in the budget, correct? I believe so.
Correct?
Should be.
Yeah.
Mike?
This was the money that we were told was, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve up to 25,000 for these items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Oh,
Thanks, Mike.
all right, so the second thing that, going to the second one? Okay, so the second thing we threw on here, so as you guys know, the world is a crazy place. A lot of mass casualty incidents out there. So we train for active shooter, active assailant, you know, that type. There's all different types of terms you want to use for that. We do train on that, but we have some limitations. And those limitations are, you know, can you do force on force, which is a totally different type of training than going and clearing this building when there's no ability for anybody to hurt me. You know what I'm saying? There's the bad guy is hiding, but it's just not the most realistic type of training. So the other option that we have to us is SWAT team trains with simunitions. If you know what those are, they're basically kind of like a paintball, but harder, more destructive. They do damage. So we're very limited on where we can train. So often the SWAT teams will go into, or a SWAT team will go into old buildings. We're going over to Yoast in a couple weeks because they're tearing that down. They're going to let us be in there. But that's not something that we can get the whole department into either. And with those simunitions, it's a more expensive thing. We only have enough for the SWAT team to use. So we're trying to come out to figure out a way that we can train the entire department in more of a force-on-force type of thing. And so what we've come up with is essentially the use of airsofts. So you get that reaction to, if you make the wrong move, you get stung. I don't know how else to say it. But without damaging things, we could train airsoft in City Hall. We wouldn't break any, well, hopefully not break anything. But with the simunitions, we would. And again, way more expensive. The ability to train the whole department with those is just not feasible. So I had our firearms guys put together a proposal here. So essentially what we would be looking at is purchasing 20 M18 pistols. So these are the airsoft pistols. And then there's a whole scenes for them, cases, facings for them, cases, face masks, bags to carry them in, propane adapters, oil, propane tanks, and then the actual BBs. So Rob Maynard, our SWAT commander and our firearms guy, he came up with this, and so he went basically through and just found wherever the best prices were. So it's presented as a whole piece, but as you can see, it's got Amazon, Walmart, Ace Hardware. I think the firearms are through Acme Sports, where we've ended up purchasing all of our past firearms from. So the total cost on that is $3,508.61. And then he wasn't sure on shipping because we had different vendors in there. But again, this would get us the opportunity to really get the entire department, a couple times a year into training to an active assailant type response. And I think, we got to be doing this. So we're either doing it with, fake blue guns, or we're doing it this way where it's way more realistic and people are really getting more of the, there's a lot more anxiety if I'm going to get shot even with an airsoft gun than there is of somebody saying bang bang with a blue gun. So we really need to be training more realistically, and this is a way to do it. So again, we're asking for some help to get us there.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? Since you put 350861, maybe we should up that because they don't have shipping and handling.
45? I don't know how much the shipping is going to be, so.
45.
I'll make a
45.
motion to approve up to 4,500.
We'll give it back if we don't spend it.
We have a motion and a second. That's been bumped up to 4,500. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Awesome. This is good stuff for us. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, we have a discussion on the Dayton Street Partners proposal.
Bill has some stuff.
Oh, Bill, we'll do you first, okay? I'm sorry.
No problem.
Howard,
Oh, that's okay.
go ahead,
Do
Bill.
mine anytime.
I put him under,
I'll be brief. I've been in discussion with Mr. Attorney Witten this week regarding some non-disclosure agreements. We've been getting a lot of calls and discussions regarding the north side properties that we have listed. Some of those developers, once I told them what we wanted to see, which is more data, financial, who the partners are, want to know who the players are, want to know what you're going to do, drawings, concepts, they start asking for non-disclosure agreements. For ethical reasons, they don't want us taking those out and giving them to somebody else, which is perfectly normal in our development world. So we have one that has been submitted for signatures. I gave it to Dan for review, so I'd like to have a motion, if I could, from the board to authorize the signing of this one. But I think it'd be pertinent that we go ahead and authorize the signing of other ones that Attorney Witten approves, so that we don't have that 30-day lag.
Who signs them, you or the
It'd be
mayor?
the mayor.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the non-disclosure agreements,
Second.
Subject to my review.
subject to Dan's review.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Dan, did you have anything?
Not a ton, Madam Mayor, other than in my discussions with Bill, as you are very well aware, in our many suitors that have come out of the woodwork over the last 3 years, you know, it's always been the big question of who are the folks, you know, and sometimes they have all kinds of different potential partners, but we never really get to the bottom line, and certainly Mr. Green never makes it to the table either. But, so I think this is important that we get who the players are, to figure out who the dreamers are versus some real viable, you know, proposals that would be worthy of consideration and discussion.
That's correct. That's a good way of putting it.
So then, would you, for the good of the commission, would you explain how that works now? Then Bill gets them, you look at them, I sign them, and then what are the next steps? How does that go?
So Bill is in negotiations with these folks, right? He's having the meetings with them. We're vetting them. This is kind of step one to sort of cull the herd a little bit. If we take a look at them, they look okay, I'll review them, you sign them, we'll get them back to Bill. He'll get them over to the, you know, the folks wanting to make the proposals, and then from Bill's standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, then you'll sort of take it to the next step in the process, correct?
Correct. Once we provide them with the non-disclosure, then they should be giving us the documents that I am telling them in their initial phone calls that we need to see. And I'll vet all that information. I mean, it's hard to get the entire board together every time to look at a proposal. So my job is really to vet through those proposals, and once they get to the presentation level, then I'll request an executive board meeting to present a full package to you guys, so that you're not going to 10 or 15 meetings, because we're gonna have to sit through, I'm gonna have to sit through, you know, 12, 15 different meetings to get a feel for what some of these people are wanting to do. And I'm getting calls from California, I mean,
And thank you for doing it, Bill.
yeah,
And we've had meetings, I mean, and some of these things were just absolute fishing expeditions, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of noise and no splash.
Right.
And-
but it's like playing a lotto ticket, you gotta buy a ticket to win. So you gotta talk to all of them until you get to the winner. So that's my opinion anyway. I have copies, review copies, if you all wanna see what they look like. You're shaking
I
your head
trust
no.
Dan.
You don't want no more paper, and Dan's the guy, yeah. I should have handed these out earlier on, but this is pretty much a generic one. AJ has seen this too before he had his situation, and I think he made comments, it's pretty generic, which they are.
And it's commonplace in these types of
Absolutely.
situations.
And once you get to an agreement, the question always comes up as to what point do you stop? Once you get to an agreement, you are a public entity, so once you sign a purchase agreement, that becomes public knowledge. So anything in that becomes.
This is just the
public knowledge.
exploration phase. We're nowhere close to,
That's correct.
this is what's happening and where the property's going.
That is correct. Okay, so we will proceed with that.
Just curious, is it a mutual non-disclosure? If we give them any information, they're agreeing not to disclose it either, right?
I believe it is, right.
It is.
And you know, from our position, you know, discussing a potential real estate purchase or sale falls under the executive session, you know, exceptions to a public meeting. So the idea of that is, yes, we keep our considerations and our questions and our, you know, discussions during the negotiations, because there might be multiple ones, you know.
Great.
So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Alan, did you have anything? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah, I have other updates, but in the, trying to save some time, I'll just, if you want to talk later on about them, I can give you updates. Nothing that's critical or need approval.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Bill. Okay, I'm going to skip around here. I'm going to go to 9 and then back to 8.7 because I think Sandy had contacted me. We have the police station container plantings, so let's do that.
So as discussed earlier, Lakeshore Landscaping is our landscape maintenance contractor for many areas in Portage that the Redevelopment Commission owns property. And they have been out, they've done their spring cleanup, and they have come to us with a couple concerns that they've seen, and provided us with a couple proposals that I know Sonia sent to you earlier today. Sorry it's so late, we just got them from them yesterday. But the main and most costly proposal is to actually plant the containers around the police station. If you recall, when the police station was remodeled, they put in some sort of barricade so vehicles couldn't just drive into the building, and we made sure that they could be somewhat decorative, and they turned out to be planters. And I believe that the fire station, which y'all owns too, has a couple pots in front of their doors. And so Lakeshore Landscaping has provided a proposal to actually plant all of those and maintain them throughout the season. So I know in the past we've had volunteers plant the planters, and have always run into the situation where there's no water, and so they failed. So the proposal from Lakeshore Landscaping is for $7,848.02, and that is not only to plant all of those structures, but to also maintain them throughout the summer with water and fertilization and things like that. And like I said, this is one of their one of the three proposals that they presented to us. Do you want to hear them all, or do you want to take action separately?
Let's hear them all.
Okay, alrighty.
Is that okay with the commission?
Of course. So their next, the next proposal that I'm looking at is to, if you all recall, all of the properties downtown are irrigated, and there are irrigation lines, and we haven't been able to use the irrigation for years. It seems like every small construction project causes damage with the lines because we've never known where they are to be able to locate them to try to prevent the damage. So actually Lakeshore has been out with Terry Ellis, who is our buildings person, and have actually done some repairs pro bono at the police station, but they know that additional repairs are needed. And so they have provided an estimate of $3,500 to get the irrigation system up and running at the police station alone. Founder Square is another estimate that they will be providing us. Obviously, they haven't gotten to it. It's a much larger animal with a lot of unknowns. Because of the playground that was installed and the construction project last year. It's like I said, quite an animal that hopefully we'll be addressing probably in the next month. But this is what they were able to get together so far. And so the last proposal, like I said, this is just from them being on site, taking a look at what they're going to have to be dealing with for the next season. And they've noticed that due to the salt on the streets, the parkway in front of the police station is pretty bald. The salt has killed the grass, and so they provided a proposal for $1,963.55 to reseed the parkway and try to get some grass growing there. So I figured that I was going to present these to you, the commission, to make a decision as to what you all feel is important to address.
Well, I can say as far as the planters, I think the first year Colin and I planted the planters, and it was horrendous, trying to keep them up all summer and water them. Several times I was over there and trying to drag the hose clear down to the other end and get it wound back up. I mean, it's crazy. There's only, yeah, and if you can't get in there, then you can't hook up the hose. So I just think for the sake of the beauty of the city, we should have someone else doing it. I think last year, I believe Kiwanis did it, and they did a beautiful job, but then again, during the summer, the weeds came in and it was just hard. I think they did say to me they had no idea that it was gonna get that time consuming. So, you know, that's the front of our buildings, it's our downtown. I just think we need to have them looking nice.
What's the mechanism? Because in the past, whenever we want something landscaped, either, for example, Phragmites up at NERC or something like that, we'd always get 3 bids or proposals. And here we're only getting 1.
We didn't request these. These are proposals that they've brought to us. They're our contractor for the year, and these are just things that they've seen are an issue, and so they have offered their services and have provided the cost for that.
Sure, but it's still a project that could always be done, and
I think
this would be something.
there's a amount, right, at a certain point, Dan?
Yeah, we're under that.
Yeah.
She's fine with what she's doing, but, I mean, if she's comfortable with this vendor, that's fine. I mean, if we thought vetting it out and setting out some RFPs or RFQs would, you know, bring forth something lower or more comprehensive in scope, but I assume you are comfortable with this vendor?
Oh, definitely. I mean, just considering the quotes that we received for landscape maintenance and the differences from what they were awarded at and the next lowest bidder, we're still way under what we're saving as far as that goes and what we paid for maintenance last year.
I don't doubt that at all. I'm just saying in past
I understand.
years,
Yep.
if we'd want something done, we'd have to go through bid, and we're changing things, and we didn't do that in the
Well,
past.
these weren't bids to begin
No,
with. They were
this wasn't
That-
anything
I-
requested.
bid and quote, two different,
I'm-
yeah.
I'm absolutely not disagreeing with you at
Yeah.
all. I'm just saying if we would see something, for example, a planter up on 20 where we would need something done, we would have to seek additional bids instead of asking the landscaper who was under contract at the time just to take care of it.
Well, I think the difference, though, what Sandy was saying here is, we didn't ask for this. They came to us and said, hey, we noted, like, we didn't include this in
Correct.
our original request,
Correct.
right?
But what is
Yeah.
there a difference to that, Dan, from a legal perspective?
So you're using the term bid, and actually we're talking about some potential for a quote. So, I think that this is a contract that certainly you could move forward with the recommendation of Sandy. That legally speaking, is fine. Now, logistically speaking, or philosophically speaking, if you wanted to send her back and tell her, send out 3 RFQs to see what you get back, you can do that. There's nothing that prevents that. But you don't have to do that in this circumstance.
Sandy, if we were to, I'm sorry, Dan,
Go ahead, sir.
if we were to bid it, I mean, we'd run up into a time crunch, wouldn't we?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we would be looking at opening quotes at our May meeting and then awarding in June and possibly getting them installed between June and July.
And again, for the record, I'm just stating, I agree with everything. I'm just saying we are changing course in past practice.
And from what I've seen, from what they've been doing, I mean, they've really done a great job, so.
I'll make a motion to award to Lake Shore for the police department and the irrigation system.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Mayor, if I may, during the sod installation at the baseball complex, we ran into some issues, and we currently have Lakeshore Landscaping out there repairing an irrigation system on an emergency basis. Our contractor, RZ Sports Turf, installed sod in the infields of all 5 fields. And we had coordinated with our buildings person and our park department to make sure that that sod was watered, so we didn't lose it. They were directed to have the sod watered this past Tuesday. It did not happen. We then found out that the irrigation system wasn't 100% functioning. So this morning, we did have the park's hydro seeder out there watering the fields, and Lakeshore Landscaping was also on site trying to repair the heads that were hit by the sports turf people. So they were out this morning, they were able to get the irrigation lines repaired so that we don't have to have a tank out there for 4 of the 5 fields. One field doesn't have irrigation, but it was a decision that was made because we had brand new sod. We were told, our office was directed that it would be watered. It wasn't watered, and our concern of the Redevelopment Commission funds being wasted on sod that wasn't going to take. So just a heads up that we probably will be seeing an invoice for Lakeshore Landscaping as far as that goes next month.
So the company that did the sod damaged?
No.
Oh.
No, the sports turf people that are reestablishing the fields out there, it was in their contract to install sod, and they said from day one, you need irrigation, you need to make sure these things are watered, we're gonna install it. And we said, we got it taken care of. And we've been having these discussions for months, and the sports people told me last week that the sod has to be watered on Tuesday, has to be completely drenched in order for it to take. And Tuesday came and went. So there's a little panic going on in our
So
office.
who was supposed to water it? That, I guess, I'm missing a piece of this.
Our irrigation lines were supposed to be up and running on 4 of the 5 fields. And then we knew that the 5th field, the largest one, did not have irrigation, and that somebody was going to have to come in with what we assumed was going to be the hydro seeder and water that field. We finally, everybody was out this morning. It looked like a busy beehive, and we have water on our sod. Still hoping that we didn't wait too long. Well, I'm
So,
not-
sorry,
Yes, please,
not
go
to.
ahead.
Well, they were the point, but did we know the irrigation system was broken?
No.
Or who was supposed to tell us the irrigation system was broken?
So we were told that the irrigation system was up and running, and it was. But when they put in the fields and they cut out some of the sod and they put down the lime ag, some of the heads were buried at some point in time. And then we also needed to adjust the heads so that they weren't spraying the ag lime and they were actually spraying the grass. So it was a combination of
We didn't know what it was until we got
them being damaged
into it.
and making sure that they were set appropriately. So it's something that we didn't expect and are just
Got it.
trying
Okay.
to handle as it goes.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I just wasn't fully comprehending it.
Believe me, I have had a hard time.
Thanks, Sandy. Is
So we can
everybody
expect
good
a
now?
bill from Lakeshore for an emergency repair that we
Yes,
asked them to do.
unfortunately, yes. And then
Got it.
hopefully we will also be seeing a proposal for Founder Square, and they've taken upon themselves to investigate it, very similar to the police station, and they're wanting to make sure that our community is looking the best that it can.
I totally agree. So one other small thing before we get to Dayton Street. We have an art contract, I think it was given to you. I think I've talked to several of you about this art. It's Art in the Park. It's a 2-year lease for some art pieces. I know they're doing it in several other cities. It's kind of a way to introduce some art into the city. So I've been working with the artist herself. She has a display going. The lease is up with the people that she has the art with now, and they're going to be removing it, and they could be bringing it here on August 31st. We have a couple of things to do to save money. I've been talking to Superintendent Reeder. We have to pour the little concrete pads to anchor the metal artwork to. This would be a 2-year lease, and I just think it would kind of perk up our city. We really don't have any art. And I'm seeing Andy out there, and I look at the job he has of trying to sell our city, and we need to make it sellable for him. So I have been working with Martha Carries, who is the artist, and I think it would be just nice for the city to have this. So what we need to do, if you're agreeable, is to agree to the contract, which Dan has looked at. Dan has also talked to Samuelson Insurance, because we have to insure the art pieces since they are being leased. And then we would have to pay the first half of the lease to Martha Carries in order to get this project done.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the art features. Is there any discussion? I think most everybody's seen this, so if there's no other further questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Commission. I think we are going to perk up the city. Okay, moving on, we have a discussion on a proposal with the Dayton Street Partners. You all have the packet. I believe it was sent to you a few days ago that Carl had given to us. So, Carl, I'm not sure. Dan, do you think that Carl should explain this first, because Carl's here today?
I think so.
Okay, then you can explain what you explained to me last week.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. I think most of you are aware we've been under discussions with Dayton Street Partners for quite some time with both AJ, Monroe, as well as Sandy. And I think, Mayor, you've had several discussions with them. Howard Wedren is here today if you have any questions. He's representing Dayton Street Partners. They have purchased, I think, approximately 40 acres of land that's, I believe, just west of the Coca-Cola bottling company, and they're proposing to build 3 buildings, but at this time, they're only committing to 1 initially. But in order to get the buildings built, they need an access road that would, I think, run parallel along 94, I believe. And they're having a difficult time with the financing, so they've approached AJ and the city of doing some TIF pledge, and the city would issue economic development bonds in order to finance the construction of the road, which is approximately $2.5 million. And then they've since come back and said, hey, we've had some other inflationary costs. As you know, construction costs have been skyrocketing, and they've asked for an additional $1 million. When we ran the numbers, Phase 1 did not cash flow. And so we said, hey, in order to meet your request, we need some additional commitments. You'd have to do more than just the Phase 1 building. Now, Phase 1 building, we believe that the first building, the tax increment generated, we were suggesting 85% be pledged and the commission keep 15%. That would cover the approximately $2.5 million of bonds. But, that's only covering the first building, and so there's no commitment to do buildings 2 and 3. The first building is $226,000 that they're committed to do. The second building would also be $226,000, and I believe the third building is $31,000. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I think just a couple other points. In order to do this financing, their property is currently in the Southport allocation area, which was the city's original allocation area. We'd have to amend that allocation area, pull the parcels out, and create a new allocation area, so we could set the clock for a 25-year financing. And that's not difficult, but it does take probably 90 or to 120 days to go through the process with the commission, the Plan Commission, and the council. Also, the Economic Development Commission will need to be involved in approving the financing, as well as your body and the Common Council as well to approve the financing. So there's a number of steps. So I think today you have the packet and their requests, and I think we're happy to answer any questions that you may have about the project or the financing, the plan of financing.
Carl, I think my first question would be, there in the memo, there's risks 1, 2, and 3. So on risk number 3, that phase 1 of the project isn't completed by December 31st, 2023. It doesn't quite say, I mean, I understand the ramifications of that. We don't collect the taxes in 24, 25, but what's the practical implication? Like, we didn't collect it. What's the financial implication?
Means, so that's the other piece, that they would need to find a purchaser for these bonds. So if the project isn't completed, then the investor isn't going to get their first interest payment in 24. In 25. Now, we could build some additional capitalized interest into, meaning interest being paid to the purchaser of the bonds, but then that's going to take a little bit away from the project costs.
Okay, so then on risk number 2, it's that the 2.5 million for phase 1 does not cover all the roads, sewer, and other infrastructure costs. Where did that number come from?
That came from Dayton Street Partners.
Okay.
They're updated, and that would include the construction costs, sewer, bringing the sewer in, as well as engineering.
Yeah, I guess my concern there is how aggressive was this number on calculating it? Because we've seen time and time again, we bid something out at what we think is going to be 1.5 million, and then it comes back at 2.2 million. So how aggressive was that 2.5 million?
Am I permitted to respond? Well, we do use general contractors with firm, we have construction drawings that are complete. So we're not bidding off of a concept set, we're bidding off of the final set of drawings, not yet approved, but the risk always lies in what's under the soil, what do we hit? Other than that, it's a guaranteed maximum price contract, what we call a GMP. So the contractor guarantees that number for us. So that's, when we move it, as soon as we start, we'll mass grade the entire site. So we'll have an idea of what's there. We go through, before we even bought the land, we did a geotechnical study. So we know what's under the soil. We've done borings across the site. We've done additional well testing. So there's not much risk under the soil. And so based on the number that we have from our contractor, again, based on construction drawings that are complete, our number will be the number. So it'll be tied to a contract, again, what's called a guaranteed maximum.
When was that? Give you that number, okay.
So I think maybe an answer to your question, Colin, that, they would have to bear probably the responsibility if there were additional soil issues, because that would be outside of what our financing scope is.
Is this a pretty common arrangement when someone's going to a development such as
There's
this?
different types of arrangements, but when there is a big development that's coming into a community, it's not uncommon for the developer to ask for some type of TIF assistance because of either the amount of investment, the number of jobs, or the jobs that are paying. And the city has done this in the past on a few projects. I think with Fronius is an example. That was a number of years ago. And then Founders Square downtown was also done through economic development revenue bonds with a TIF pledge. In both cases, only the amount of their tax increment is available to pay the debt service on the bonds. So their project has to basically make sure that it's covering, the projections used in the financing.
So I've seen these in other places, but to be honest with you, my experience anyway has been that the project is such a magnitude that it outweighs the risk, that the ultimate possible gain, development around it, number of jobs, all that stuff, greatly outweighs the risk that you're taking. So I see bigger projects for this kind of thing, actually.
Carl, I'm concerned about, I mean, you're talking about the phase one, and that seems to be where they're beginning. I'm just very concerned that phase 2 and 3, are they going to happen? I mean, this is a big investment on our part, $3.5 million. I mean, I would like to see some kind of commitment from the Dayton Street people that 2 and 3 are going to happen.
So the initial TIF covers the infrastructure, so the mass grading of the road, all the infrastructure that's under the road that will eventually feed our park and then over to Marine Drive. And so it's going to hopefully eventually stimulate additional development west of us. That cost is covered, more than covered, under phase 1. Phase 2 would require, if we need additional infrastructure for the additional dollars. And Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not making a commitment for those additional dollars until a later date, because that money's not being spent at this point. We're spending it right now on the initial road and the initial infrastructure that's going in under the road only. That's not, yes, it benefits our project, but it'll be conveyed back to the city of Portage.
Yeah, but I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think what Mr. Munn is talking about is, again, what I said, where the overall project or the end result, the potential benefit outweighs the risk. And it's a much different equation to say, we're going to have phase 1 and done, maybe 2 and 3, maybe. That's a whole lot of a different equation than, we have written commitments for 1, 2, and 3. These are the potential jobs. This is the tax revenue. These are all these things from the overall project. I think that might be where he's going, and I think it's a great question, actually.
Thank you, and that's exactly where I'm going.
So,
Can you, sorry, for the live stream, can you actually
Oh, yeah,
sit and
absolutely.
talk into that mic?
yeah, absolutely. So the phase 1 is we have a financing commitment. Our Old National Bank is our lender. We will be mass grading, putting that infrastructure in day 1. We have financing for phase 1, which is the 226,000 square feet from Old National Bank. Our equity across the entire project is one of the largest union pension funds in the country. So it's part teachers and part labor unions that are part of that fund that invest with us, not only on this project, but other projects that we're developing and have developed around the country. So it's financed, the equity is here, the project's getting built, and it's getting built with union labor on phase 1. We do not have financing at this point for phase 2. We have the equity. We're a joint venture partner with the union fund. So phase 2 and 3 will follow. So we need, typically a lender's not going to go out and, especially right now in this market, go out and necessarily go build all 3 on spec. So we're going to build phase 1, which will stimulate the following sites, which would be 2 and 3. That would follow, and those could be on a build-to-suit basis, which we're in discussions with a couple of groups, or it could just be selling off a portion of the land to another user who might go and develop it themselves. So I think the risk lies in the road under phase 1. If I'm articulating this correctly, the TIF that's generated from this PIN on phase 1 more than covers the debt service for the payment of the road under phase 1 of the $2.4 million of cost.
It does.
Right. So we're not asking for the additional dollars day 1. That's at a future date, should we develop phase 2 and 3.
So
I
Carl,
think that's where the confusion lies.
what does this do to our bonding capacity? If we wanted to do another bond for downtown, what does this do?
I don't think it has any impact on your bonding capacity, because again, we're pulling their parcels out, and there's very little increment being generated now. So they'd be pulled out into a separate allocation area. So if you were to do a future project in downtown or wherever in the allocation area, that would be a standalone, because it's not pledging the Southport allocation area. That's been our discussion, with Howard and his group, that, they're going to have to find their own investor if they're not willing to purchase the bonds themselves.
Right.
And we do have an investor for the bonds, an Indiana-based office called Hageman Ventures out of Indianapolis. So we have a letter of intent with them to purchase the bonds, if it's approved.
But-
We're not necessarily taking money out of our bank account for this. What we're doing is we're taking the tax that would be generated by building one and committing 85% of it to finance for the road.
Yes.
So it's not, we're making our pie of dollars larger. We're not taking a piece out of the pie. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so we're collecting 15% in essence over the 15 years.
Right now, we're not collecting
Right.
anything off of that land.
It's
Whatever has been
it's not-
increased since it was put in the allocation area.
Yeah.
It's
Which
it's
is
a
minuscule.
nominal amount.
Yeah.
So once we put this back on the tax rolls, the site's activated, it's personal property, it's real estate taxes and potentially personal property taxes for the equipment that a company would purchase or a tenant would purchase upon occupancy.
So when this expires in, what would it be, 25 years? Is that what it
Yes.
is? It would go back into the Southport
Go
theoretically
back,
wouldn't exist. It would go back to the city?
And
The
all the
city's tax
taxing
rolls.
units, yeah, would capture
But
that.
the risk still exists if you don't sell the bonds, that we would have to use Southport allocation dollars, right?
If we were to find a buyer. I don't see any way for us to go in the public market without pledging another allocation area that has a history of
So
revenues.
if you all don't have a buyer, it is going to require us to have Southport if we have to go in the public market.
Or the project doesn't move forward.
Got it.
Yeah, it just, the land would sit there, but we do have a buyer for the bonds. And they're a sophisticated family office, and that's all they do, is TIF bond work. And I think Carl's familiar.
Has
with
Carl
that.
or Dan seen that? Just,
I've heard the name,
Yeah.
but I've not worked with them before.
I think we would want a more firm commitment that it, like, not that I don't trust you, it's just.
Of course.
We have
No,
a
I mean,
fiduciary
we're happy to
responsibility to ensure that that is the case.
Absolutely, and we're happy to share the term sheet with you. And certainly Adam Collins, who's our counsel, has done work. I think you've done work with Adam, and Adam's done work with Hageman and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of TIF work around the state of Indiana.
Howard, I have a question because I remember a conversation we had early on that when you go on Coca-Cola Avenue, that there was going to be a concern with the semis, if you have semis going into these warehouses, of making that turn. Is that still an issue? And would that be the Redevelopment Commission's, would that be on us to have to build out that curve and make it so that the semis could make the curve?
I think phase one, we're fine. AJ and I have had discussions about widening that curve. That would be, that the city of Portage would widen just that corner. We're expanding the balance of that road where Coca-Cola ends all the way to Marine Drive. So that's part of the request that we're making. It's not the curve.
Is this connecting to Marine?
Yes, it'll have a fire road. It'll connect to Marine. The fire commissioners requested that we have access, so they have multiple means of egress to the site.
And what is the developable land that's around there that if your warehouses got built, what is the bigger picture there?
Beyond the three?
But beyond the three, well, first, there could be.
Because it's kind of like the road to nowhere.
Well, you have land, some vacant land, some land that has mobile homes on it to the west. So eventually, I don't know what the city's plan is, but that would all then connect and then feed up to a traffic light that then exits out to the highway and the balance of your retail along that roadway. But I think for us, and I think for the project, it's not necessarily about the economic development west of us, but it's certainly about the temporary jobs, the union jobs that this project brings, and it's the full-time jobs that it would bring to Portage. To my knowledge, there's no manufacturing or distribution space available in Portage, Indiana at this time. Maryville has sites coming online by our competitors. Those have leased up for the most part, so we're in a very good position to lease these projects at high rental rates that I think will, again, generate jobs. We have interest, but the way that our business works is that we've got to build the buildings in order for the tenants to come. They're typically not out in the market for 6 to 8 months before they need occupancy. And they need to get in, and they get in quickly. So in many cases, like we'll do with this project, we'll actually develop much of the internal infrastructure of the building on specs. We'll put the office space in so that they're ready to go, and they don't have to wait for building permits, wait for it to get constructed.
I'd be interested to hear what Andy thinks about this from an Economic Development Commission standpoint, or Portage GDC standpoint.
Yeah, do you want me to come up to the podium?
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think this is a great project. To me, this is what TIF money is designed for, these type of projects. You know, if you do your research on their company, you know, they're a multi-million-dollar company. They do these developments all over. Ameriplex is full. I mean, there's no more room to grow there. And I come across my desk, you know, once or twice a week, different proposals from companies looking, I need 100,000 square feet, I need 150,000 square feet. You know, and these are all really great companies and jobs that we don't have anywhere to put them. This is kind of like the last area currently, unless we start moving south, which, you know, that's you guys in the council and the mayor, you guys decide that. Unless we start moving south, we really don't have anywhere else to put these type of buildings. And I'll tell you, they'll fill fast. They'll have tenants in those, just like Ameriplex right now. You know, Ameriplex has got some smaller spaces that pop open every now and then, but the bigger users that are the ones out there who will come in and bring a lot of jobs to the city need the bigger spaces. So I look at this, and I think about the, you know, as Howard mentioned, a couple hundred, you know, union labor jobs building it. You think about, you know, hundreds of jobs of people that'll go to work at the companies that land in these buildings. So, and I understand your concern, you know, there's no guarantee on buildings 2 and 3, but I'll tell you, I mean, these guys are in business to do this. I mean, the 2 and 3 will more than likely will happen just by the economy of people looking for those spaces. I mean, there'll be opportunities for that. And, you know, if you think about Ameriplex, it started with one building, you know, so it's kind of the same thing. So I think this is a great project, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the consideration that you guys are putting toward it. But again, this isn't a fly-by-night company where you have to be a little sketchy and worry about. These guys know what they're doing, and there's definitely a demand for what they want to bring to this property. So I would be in full support of it.
Thank you, Andy.
And I think it is important to note, I started at Dayton Street back in 2007. We've developed almost 5 million square feet of distribution centers across the United States. We have projects going up right now in Atlanta, Savannah, Chicago in our backyard, Houston, and the Central Valley in California. Again, it's all Nuveen is our investor, which is the largest pension fund advisor in the country. And we take a lot of pride in what we do, but we also take a lot of personal risk. So it's not only is it my capital, but it's also Nuveen's capital, and we make personal guarantees on our loans to our lenders. So this has to succeed, and it will. I mean, this is what we do, and we do it well, and we'd like to deliver this project. I bought the land, you know, 1.5 years ago, and we want to activate it, and we've done a lot of planning to get here. So we're hoping that you will be supportive. And I did bring some images of the buildings if you'd like to see ultimately what the project will look like once it's done.
So what would be the next step? What are we being asked of tonight?
I think both this body and the council will need to provide support, because later on, you're going to take official action to support, if you do decide to move forward, to create a separate allocation area, to go through that process, as well as to have bond resolutions to support the issuance of bonds for the project. And it'll need, I guess, really 3 bodies: your body, the council, the Economic Development Commission for the financing. The Plan Commission gets involved when we create an allocation area. But really the 3 bodies for the financing piece.
So how much of a problem is it if these aren't built by the end of the year? Because, gotta be honest, that's a lot to get done in
Well-
6 months.
That's why we've been putting a lot of pressure on to keep this moving forward. We were hoping to be on the ground last year. So we're ready to go. We have, I had a pre-buy, so right now, supply chain's still an issue, the cost of concrete roofing. We've pre-bought our roof. It's sitting in East Chicago, Indiana, in a warehouse. Our precast is sitting in Fabcon's manufacturing facility in Michigan. So we're ready to go. We just need to get in the ground and get going. We've already worked with Attorney Witten's office on surety bonds so that there's insurance over that road getting constructed, so we can move this forward and the city makes sure that, yes, we're going to keep our word that this road is built, and it's not a road to nowhere. We're going to have a building and stimulate development on the balance of the site.
The interest costs for another year is about $220,000 at 7.5% is kind of a higher yield. What we're thinking is the rate. So we'd have to figure out if there is delays, how that gets covered with the purchaser of the bonds.
So not to delay the project anymore, I'd like to make a motion to support moving forward with bonding of the road.
I'm concerned about the word if. You said more than three people, all three of you have said if. And it's the if on number 2 and number 3 phase. That concerns me. We're taking the big step. You've got the initial investment, but you don't have the initial commitment to 2 and 3. That's what concerns me very much.
So obviously,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I interrupted you. I'm familiar with the projects that are in Maryville. They developed and had commitments to the properties from 1960, because I'm very familiar with the property and the owners and the original owners. The commercial development from Menards up was planned in when I-65 went in. The development of the warehouses was first thought of in the 1970s. It didn't happen until the economy got better. The people that came in, they knew what they wanted to do ahead of time, and they had their plan drawn up. And they never once, in all the planning meetings that I attended for my older property, they said, I'm sorry. I'm concerned about the word if. So what are your issues with 2 and 3?
There are no issues with 2 and 3. We have a financing commitment right now for all the site work. So rebalancing the site, all the site grading. Obviously the road would come in via the TIF funding. Our building pad, everything would go up on phase 1. The detention ponds would all go in for the entire park. That eventually service all 3 phases. We, like anything, we always look at risk much like you do, and we want to build phase 1 first. We want to then we'll go into phase 2 is already designed. We already have construction drawings for phase 2, the second 226,000 square foot building. And then we're marketing site 3 as a build-to-suit for a tenant that would come in. So as a developer, I understand risk, and I think Carl again can confirm that phase 1, under the $2.4 million of TIF that's required to construct this roadway and all the infrastructure that's going to feed the project, that increment is covered. The tax that's generated from the PIN, once it's fully assessed, covers the note and the bond for phase 1. We're not asking for these phase 2 dollars until a later date. So it's the $2.4 million. The other million would come at a later date without a firm commitment until we move forward with the development of the balance of the site. Am I communicating that correctly?
Yeah, I think that.
But I guess,
Yeah.
is phase 1 enough to pay back the cost of putting in the road?
Yes.
Well, what's the guarantee on that, though? I think that's getting to Alan's concern is, what if we get to a point where it's not enough, and then we're stuck holding the bag? We
Well,
paid
you-
to put in a road, and then there's nothing else after phase one.
Well, again,
It's
phase
just
one
empty land.
covers the cost of the road. Phase one covers more than covers the cost of the road.
The road makes phase 2 and 3 developable.
Exactly.
So worst case scenario, building 1's put in, we get 15% of the revenue
Correct.
generated, and you disappear, lots for building 2 and 3 are developable, and if there's jobs and everything, those buildings are gonna be built, and our commitment has already been done.
Or the property sold, right.
Right, that first building's, the revenue generated from that PIN pays the debt service for the road. In its simplest terms.
If I may, just, the only, again, risk outstanding with phase one then is if it's not done and assessed come January 1, we got that interest payment, and then we have a little bit of principal that we got to figure out how to smooth out over the remaining term of the bonds. It's not a lot, but it's maybe $50,000 worth. But
Right, and that's something that we can, I think, have a broader discussion on, whether it's with the bondholder or it's us, on that additional debt service coverage. But that, obviously, that's why we're pressing to get into the ground. And for everybody, like for us, like for you, whether you're borrowing money, it's gone up, right? So over the last year. And so that's why we want to get this project up and running, get the building up and get it into service. There's a lot of companies leaving Illinois right now, a lot of food-related distribution companies and light manufacturing. And so we want to be able to capture that. And we need to do that. And the problem is if we continue to wait and we can't get into the ground this year, if we have to build into the winter, we hit winter conditions, it gets more expensive. And then we're paying a higher interest rate on that number. So we want to get into the ground and get moving. The site's been cleared, and it just right now is a matter of getting the foundations poured and getting the detention ponds built.
We have a motion, but we didn't.
I'll
have a
second it so we can get to a vote at least, so.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Sonia, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lack,
Yes.
Commissioner Zilli,
Yes.
Commissioner Munt,
Yes.
Commissioner Ekdahl,
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Is there any other business to come before this commission at this time? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure.